Hey everyone, we got some great news today for Fisker stock investors in what was a refreshing sign that sent the stock price up more than 20% at one point before coming back down a little bit. So in this video, I'm going to go over what that big news was that sent Fisker's stock price soaring and whether the increase was justified and whether investors should take this as a time to sell into this news or if it's just more to come following this big event. So let's jump in, let's dig into the details.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
All right, so the big news was that Fisker entered into a material agreement with an investor, an institutional investor that holds some secured senior convertible notes with Fisker, meaning it's one of the lenders that Fisker owes a significant amount of money to. So it entered into an agreement with that lender that converted some of those loans into shares of stock. And that was a favorable transaction for Fisker, as we're going to see here. I've highlighted the segment as of January 19th. The remaining aggregate balance of the loans, the notes, is now 324.5 million, following conversion by the investor of an aggregate 185.5 million of the $510 million aggregate principal amount of the notes. As of January 19th, the company issued 159.062 million shares of Class A common stock in connection with the conversions of the notes described above. So let me clarify what happened here. Fisker owed this investor $510 million that was going to be due coming soon. That was going to be due 2025. So in about a year and a half, and we'll look at the details of that as well. So this was going to be difficult for Fisker to pay back this money, right? Fisker's losing a lot of money on the bottom line. It's been slow to ramp up production and deliveries, and it's been plagued with several different issues that have sent the stock price falling and performance less than what investors were expecting. So now with this agreement, it lessens the burden on Fisker. Fisker now only has to pay back 324 million on this particular note. There's more. Fisker has more debt, but on this particular note, it only has to pay back 324 million. What's more, what makes this even more favorable is by converting 185.5 million for 159 million shares, Fisker essentially got $1.16 per share for this agreement. And as you probably already know, Fisker's stock price was significantly below that to start the day. So if you look at the start before the market opened, Fisker's stock price was less than 84 cents per share. But it was able to secure $1.16 per share for these shares. And that's why the stock price exploded coming into this morning. And then it's coming back down. It's now at 96.967 cents per share after coming down from about $1.10 per share earlier. Now, there was more in connection to this agreement. This wasn't the only thing that was announced. So in connection with one of these future transactions with a strategic automotive partner, the company has secured a release of all liens previously granted to the investor on the intellectual property required by any such transaction. So this lender is also releasing the company, giving it more freedom to make arrangements with other automotive partners. Additionally, all financial covenants relating to the company's cash reserves were waived, and such unrestricted cash is now available for use in the operations of the company. So I'm going to show you the company had about 100 million in restricted cash that it wasn't free to use as it so pleased. And now with this agreement, the company is free to use this cash as well. So what you're seeing here is this agreement with the lender has freed up Fisker to be more nimble in making strategic decisions on what to do with the company, how to pivot, how to execute better, because I mentioned already it was having some difficulty in some of its operations, namely in getting the produced cars to customers. And then there was the potential recall issue, which the company issued a statement on saying that they are meeting or exceeding all of these standards. So let's take a closer look at this debt issue. As of September 30th, Fisker's cash and cash equivalents totaled $527 million and restricted cash totaled $98 million. So this was the cash that can now be released, this $98 million, for Fisker to use in its operations. So it supports this $527 million, which this was as of September 30th, 2023. I wouldn't be surprised if this $527 million is now significantly lower, as the company has probably lost a lot of money in the few months leading up till now, from September 30th until today. So this 98 million is going to be much needed capital for Fisker to continue ramping up production to get its cars to customers. So in July and September, they entered into agreements of $510 million in principal amount of convertible senior notes due in 2025. The 2025 notes were going to mature in July of 2025 and September of 2025 unless repurchased, redeemed, or converted according with the terms. So some of these were redeemed, and so now instead of having to pay back $510 million, Fisker will only need to pay back $324.5 million. Of course, now they have another 159 million shares outstanding, which is diluting shareholders. And when or if the company ever becomes profitable, the earnings per share are going to be lower now, because now there's an extra 159 million shares outstanding to split those profits with. Still, this is really good news, and this was necessary for Fisker. This was a prudent move. This long-term debt that the company has coming due in 2025 and 2026 is a major concern, because it doesn't have enough money to pay back that debt. It's probably not going to generate positive cash flow from operations before this date in order to increase their cash internally to pay this debt. So it's going to need to do some kind of refinance or stock sale in order to pay back this debt. And this agreement seems like friendly, favorable terms for Fisker granted by this lender. Now, I'm a little curious why this lender agreed to these terms, to give Fisker these favorable terms, when the lender seems like it was in a strong negotiating position. So I'm a little bit curious as to why the lender agreed to do this. Perhaps more news will come out about this a little bit later. Nevertheless, this is good news for Fisker, and it gives it a little bit more breathing room to get itself on firm footing and get itself going now that it started production. If you liked the video you just saw and you want to see more just like it, please subscribe to the channel. I can't keep this channel free without the support of viewers like you. And if you're already subscribed, thank you, and I appreciate your support.